Welcome back, everyone, to another exciting episode of Aaron's Opinion, the podcast for blind people, where we speak about critical issues in the blindness community and all other issues from across the universe and galaxy. Rod Clemmons, I forget where I found you, but I'm glad you did. As we say, you definitely have your stick in many, many fires. You're a music producer. You're writing a screenplay. You're doing a ton of different things around the blindness community. I specifically forget where I saw you, but when I found out that you were putting together this documentary regarding to the Arkansas School for the Blind, I thought, this sounds interesting. And then when I found out about the fact that you're a music producer, I said to myself, oh, I've got a lot of blind musicians who would love to network with you and connect with you. And then when I found out about all the interesting stuff you do, I said, well, let's get you over here and see what's going on. Who is Rod Clemmons? The whole story, Rod, from your life to where you are, all the projects, you can basically tell what you want to tell. Don't tell me anything you don't want me to repeat, and go for it. From the top. By the way, anything you say, this is a podcast. This is probably going to get repeated. So,
Yes.
bang. All right. I'll mute my microphone. Dig into it, man. Go for it.
Well, yes. Hello, everyone. My name is Rod Clemmons. Rod is a short version of my full first name, which is Roderick. My grandmother gave me that name. She told my mother that when I was born, that I would be a famous something or other, and and I guess here we are. But anyway, um, I was born and raised in Pine Bluff, Arkansas, which at the time um, held one of the most best known historical black colleges in the United States, called AM&N College, which is now the University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff. And my father was the head basketball coach there for a while. Then he was also associate professor of health and physical education. Then he became the athletic director, and which was a wonderful thing for the school. But anyway, my mother was a elementary school teacher, um, and so I come from a family of educators. And in fact, in our immediate family, my sister was a high school educator of business courses. Uh, well, actually, that might be the end of the. Oh no, I'm sorry. My grandmother on my mother's side was a teacher. My grandfather on my father's side was the superintendent of a small school system in another city in Arkansas. In fact, they just named a street after him down there. I think it's in DeWitt, Arkansas. I'm not sure about that. Um, but so we come from a line of educators, athletes, some medical people. I have a wonderful niece who is an epidemiologist for Centers for Disease Control. And I have another niece who is one of the top radiology technologists in Louisville, Kentucky. And then there are some musicians, but the musicians are all on my mother's side, and they're gone. Of course, they were my grandmother and her sisters, my great aunts, and they have passed away quite a while ago. But that's where all the music came from. I started training in classical piano when I was the ripe old age of 3 years old, and just kept studying all the way through until I finished um, an undergraduate degree in classical piano performance at the Indiana University Jacobs School of Music in Bloomington, Indiana, and then went on to live in Louisville, Kentucky for a little while. Played in a band. I put a band together, and we did a lot of club dates back in the '80s when Louisville was pretty heavy with nightclub activity and stuff like that. I don't know what it's like now. I moved to New York in '88 and lived there for 26 years, and that's where I began my production company and independent record label. And I did a lot of voice coaching on the side for musical theater performers, from Broadway shows ranging from Les Miserables to um, Song from a New World, um, Hairspray, Lion King, um, Legally Blonde, all kinds of fun stuff. And but then I did a lot of music directing for some of the independent artists whose albums I produced. And they range from lots of different styles, such as Caribbean world music, contemporary gospel, contemporary R&B. Um, I actually did one country crossover album, which was really fun, called Blue Love by a group named Teeter Gray. Um, some children's music. In fact, I produced an award-winning children's album called Now I Lay Me Down to Sleep, an album of classical lullabies by a guitar and violin duo. And then I have released my own independent album, my first one, back in 2018, and that brought me a Grammy nomination for Best R&B Album. And it's out and still doing quite nicely, getting lots of uh, play on all of the major uh, streaming platforms, iHeart, Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon, wherever, YouTube, all of it. And it's still going quite strong. I'm working on the second album as we speak. Right now, my first one's called What's Up, It's Me. The second one I'm working on is called Racket. Um, and then I also, I've toured and performed in different places around the country. And Jiminy Christmas, I've done all kinds of fun things. I am now actually getting ready to start production on a holiday movie. It's actually not a documentary. It is a holiday movie called A Genie for Christmas. And it's a narrative based on a wonderful music teacher that we had at the Arkansas School for the Blind. Her name was Jean Boyce. Everybody called her Jeannie. Um, she was truly the Pied Piper of the school, and this was back in the time when the Arkansas School for the Blind was one of the highest accredited education facilities for the blind and visually impaired in the country, if you can believe that, in little old Little Rock, Arkansas. But she was truly amazing. I had her as a teacher on some level from second grade until I graduated from high school. So she was my elementary school teacher, music teacher, I mean. Then I joined her high school choir in seventh grade. Then she became also my private classical piano teacher, and she had me in high school competitions all around the state of Arkansas and in different parts of the region around Arkansas, Texas, Missouri, places like that. And that's how I ended up at Indiana University. But so now I am getting ready for this movie. The screenplay is done. I can say a little bit about it, but I can't say a whole lot until the studio is ready to actually start announcing it. So I can be a little bit limited, but I can say a little bit about it. But it is, I'm very excited. It's a movie that will feature blind and visually impaired um, children who will be playing the blind and visually impaired students in the movie. And um, so that's it's gonna be wonderful. It's based on the incredibly amazing Christmas productions that she would do with us at the school, all of us, all the students at the school, and those Christmas productions were so popular that people who were not even affiliated with the school would come from all over the state to see them. I mean, they were just amazing. They were nothing short of a Broadway show, and um, I I knew that they were wonderful all the time, but it was not until I graduated from high school and went to college, came back my first Christmas of my freshman year, in college and went to the Christmas production. And this time I could observe from an audience member. And I was just like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. We used to do this stuff. I used to do this. But it was absolutely fantastic. She retired in the mid '80s, and she finally passed away about 3 years ago. She and I remained the very best of friends all through while I was there in school, after I graduated, all the way until she passed. Every time I would go home, I would go and see her, and hang out, and all kinds of stuff. She was just absolutely fantastic. So I'm really excited that this movie is about to be produced, and I should be doing the theme song of the movie, which is a song I wrote called "That's What Love Is," and that is actually on my debut album, "What's Up, It's Me." It's the last song on there, but I'm redoing it for the movie to give it a little bit more of a Hollywood flavor, if you will. Um, and then hopefully doing the film score, the music score of the movie. And so it's really going to be fantastic. I'm so very excited about that. Then I have other projects that I'm working on. I'm doing preparing with a partner a half-hour cartoon series called the Doodie Doos, and these are characters that are not quite human, but they're almost human. But but it's really going to be funny. I love it. It's definitely going to be one of those water cooler TV shows, probably on like Netflix or something like that. But we'll know by the summertime. But we're preparing that right now, and also I'm in the process of preparing and presenting yet a new half-hour television series project, and this will involve the main character being a very young, like a late 20s African American um, blind female law student who has just finished her law degree on top of her class at Georgetown, and she is getting ready to go and interview for a bunch of law firms. And she's being presented to these firms by all of her advisees and professors and all of this. And she is just so incredible and amazing that these people forget to let these law firms know one little detail. And so they don't know it until she gets there, and that is she's blind. And she also has a guide dog. So that's kind of the thrust of this, what this show is going to be about. I can't quite say the name of it yet, um, but yeah. So that's, I mean, geez, that's some of the stuff that I have been working on and am now working on, and yada yada yada.
All right. All right. Well, let me just fill you in right here. That to me, that's definitely not yada 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 to me. That's wow, wow, wow. First of all, I have to congratulate you about something. And to go backwards into my psychosis, into my path, I have to tell you that for many years of my life, I forget if I did tell you, but I was a classical flutist all through high school, university. I was going to audition only music camps. I was very, very compelled by music, just as you were.
No,
Um,
I didn't. You did not say that at all. Wow.
now I said it. And I certainly, to be both humble and to be factual and polite and to be realistic, I was not good enough to play, in a concert orchestra setting, but
Mm,
I was still, for someone given my situation, I was still quite good at it. And overall, I enjoyed it very much. And I think that's something that's oftentimes overlooked is
hmm.
people always try to overestimate themselves and say, well, I have to be the best at this or the best screenplay or the best music or the best. No, you don't. Actually, first of all, you have to love it. You have to enjoy
Right.
it. You have to actually
Yes.
have an interest in it. Because if you're never interested in it, then it's never going to be a good idea. And that's what
Exactly.
I would try to tell people. People don't get that, Rod. By the
Yeah.
way, for the record, I love the name Roderick. Roderick, that is so cool. There's no
I
way.
guess
I'm not calling you Rod. I'm going to call you Roderick. That is just
okay.
too
That's
cool.
that's
That is
fine.
just too
I
cool,
shortened it
man.
because
Well,
like as
why?
a
Well, don't
well,
don't don't take shortcuts. Go all the way. Go all the way
but
with it.
because pursuing a career as an R&B
Yeah.
singer, songwriter,
Hmm.
performer. I thought Roderick would be a little too foo 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 foo.
No, no, because no, because if you're Roderick, if you're pursuing a career, you want to be foo-foo, okay? You want to have a weird, cool sounding, powerful Roderick Clemmons,
You know,
okay?
it's funny that you should say that because I've been sort of loosely thinking about that for quite
Don't,
a
well, stop
while.
thinking. Well, stop thinking. Well, stop thinking and
and,
start doing. Like
and
when
I think
people,
I might, I actually, what I was going to say is I might use that name now for the next album. And also, since the Genie for Christmas movie is not out yet,
Mhm.
I might just get them to use that name because I mean I'm not in the movie, but you're going to see my name all over the screen. I mean I'm the author, I am one of the executive producers, I'm the film score composer, I'm the theme songwriter. So you know it's the
Yeah.
Genie Voice story starring Roderick Clemmons. No, it's good, but
But you need a third after that Clemens, though. Roderick Clemens the third. You need no, sir, because
nah, that's a
you
little
gotta
bit
say,
too much.
yeah, yeah, okay. I think I just fibbed. Okay, no, no, never mind about that. Anyway, man. So the other thing that is significantly unknown in the musical community, but when you said University of Indiana, I know what
Mm,
that means. You
mm.
are very, 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 very gifted. One
Oh,
step
thank
under
you.
Juilliard is University of Indiana. That is a ridiculous accomplishment. I mean,
Wow.
holy no, I knew what it was. That's a ridiculous accomplishment to even be considered to go to University of Indiana for music. That's ridiculous.
Well,
And I mean that in a
what's
good
so
way. Yeah.
thank you.
Hmm.
What's so funny is when I was actually getting prepared to go to Juilliard about maybe about 15 years ago, 16 years ago,
Sure.
to work on a master's, but this
Hmm.
time in composition.
Right.
And um, so when I was talking to somebody in admissions, and I mean, and I was living in New York at the time, and so you know, New York kind of has that, yeah, whatever kind of thing, you know. If you're not doing something in New York, then you're not doing anything. But so she asked me, she said, "So where did you go to school?" I said, "I went to Indiana University." And all of a sudden, she's like, "In Bloomington?" I'm like,
Yeah,
"Yeah."
it's ridiculous. You got to be like ridiculous. I mean, and the reality is, if you're good enough for University of Bloomington, the answer is you will get into Juilliard. Almost certainly you probably could. It's usually what it is. For those listeners who don't understand it, it's almost always a matter of you audition at both places, and for the luck of the draw, your application is chosen between those two places. But
Right,
either
right.
way,
Yes.
if you even have the business to be considered for University India Bloomington, you're like ridiculous. You're like, that's just in case we have sports fans out there, that would be like NFL level.
Oh yeah.
That's a ridiculous accomplishment. I mean, that's so good.
Absolutely.
So what's your favorite classical piano piece? And I want to see if you come up with the one that I'm thinking of. What's your favorite? Because I have a favorite. Even though I'm a flutist, I have a favorite piano piece.
It's interesting you should ask that question.
Because
I
I have a favorite.
really, I love Chopin, of course. Who
Oh.
doesn't?
Oh.
Um,
Chopin's amazing. Chopin's
yeah,
amazing.
you know, a little
I
Chopin,
was
it's not a
thinking of
problem.
something. I'm sure you'll jump right on it. Yeah, I'm sure you'll get it right away. I was thinking some guy named Ludwig. Ludwig van Beethoven wrote something that I love for the piano.
Which one? Which piece?
Which one do you think it could be? If you were to take a trivia guess, what do you think my
Um,
favorite piano piece is?
well,
Let me give you a hint. I
okay.
like things that are very dramatic, strong,
Mm-hmm.
resonant, beautiful. That
Yep.
one. What do you think it is?
Sonata Pathétique?
No,
No?
no,
Sonata Opus 2, number 3?
no,
No. Appassionata?
no.
Dag.
Come on, Roderick. You told me you got into University of Indiana Bloomington. You got
I
that? Come
did.
on.
Geez. Is it a concerto?
Yes.
Oh,
That
okay.
one.
So I'm
Okay.
not.
I love, by the way, as a people who played the flute obsess about the concertos. So I
Well,
love
of course.
concertos for other
Yes.
instruments. Yeah. Hmm.
Yes. I'm not a big, and I'm probably gonna. Somebody who's listening or will listen to this is probably gonna slap the living daylights out of me. I am not a huge Beethoven fan. I have much respect for him. Brilliant composer, but I don't know. I'm not really into bass. Of course, I'm not into my favorite classical style period is the Romantic period. So that
Absolutely.
tells you, yeah.
Sure, sure,
Now
sure, sure, man.
I played the Pathetique.
Mm-hmm.
I also did Opus 2 number 3.
Mm-hmm.
I also did Appassionata. I didn't do a lot of Beethoven.
Mm.
I did a lot of Chopin.
Yeah, well,
Uh,
because Chopin wrote a lot. That's why.
oh my
That's
God,
one of the
yes.
reasons. There's a lot
Oh,
of material.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. And I mean his Ballade in A flat, Barcarolle. Oh, jeepers. Um, Tchaikovsky.
Oh
Tchaikovsky
yeah.
is my favorite orchestral composer. I love that man. I mean, he's all about the melody, you know.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of classical composers, to me, seem to be a little. I don't know how to describe it, but it's like I'm going to be so abstract and give you the blah 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 blah. You know, Tchaikovsky's like, hey, here's a melody, sing it.
Mm-hmm.
When you leave the concert hall, sing this, okay? Da da dee da 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 da. I mean, you know, you can't get any more singable than that.
Absolutely
And
true. Absolutely, mate. No, I was thinking, now, do you want me to tell you now, or do you want me to have a stinger at
yes.
the? Okay, it was the Emperor. I was thinking of Emperor Concerto.
Oh my gosh, Rob, you are so. Ugh. Anyway, okay.
That was by far, but the reason why I like that very much is because that's very appealing to a flutist who loves to obsess about powerful concertos. And I
Oh
understand why
yeah,
you didn't say it because Emperor is ridiculously aggressive with the third
yeah,
movement. And that's a bit, I do understand you're very artistic. You come across as this like, strong, gentle, beautiful, kind of smooth, artsy guy who wants things that are a little bit sweeter and a little bit more sugar.
yeah.
And I'm more of a bitter, blunt, direct guy that just wants, the crashing finale, bingo,
There you
Let's
go.
dive right on over to something else you said that's very, very interesting. So these various albums that you have produced over the years, Rod, so are they available on Spotify? Reason I'm asking is I actually have kind of curated and compiled a Aaron's Opinion playlist over the years, specifically on Spotify.
Hmm.
It's not
Oh.
podcast episodes. It's all of
Mhm.
the music of all of the other blind people who I've interviewed over the years who have put music on Spotify. So how much of your music is on Spotify that you have authored, that you've written?
Well, that's interesting. Of course, with my album, What's Up It's Me, all the songs are mine, except for I did do a remake of James Taylor's Carolina in My Mind. I love James Taylor.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but everything else, all the other 10 songs are all mine.
Okay.
Then I have two, let's see. Yeah. I have two albums that I produced for a contemporary gospel artist named Dan Kenneth. Wonderful. In fact, he's the partner that I was mentioning that we're doing the cartoon, the Doodie Doos together.
Sure,
Um,
sure.
and we co-wrote almost all of the songs on both of those albums, except I wrote on this first one, Laid on Jesus, I wrote that song and also, no, I'm sorry. The name of the album is From the Heart. Laid on Jesus is one of the songs on it. I wrote that song. I wrote the title track, From the Heart, and also another song I wrote called I Know You Got My Back. But all of those plus the rest of his album, they're all on all the streaming stuff, Spotify, whatever. Then his most recent album, which is um, called Didn't I Tell You? We co-wrote all of those, except I wrote the title track, Didn't I Tell You? And I think everything else we co-wrote. He did a remake of Elton John's "I'm Still Standing," but
Sure, sure,
yeah,
absolutely.
everything else we co-wrote,
Mm-hmm.
and so those are there. Oh gosh, they're oh, jeepers. Two albums from a wonderful artist. She and I were married once upon a time. Her name is Leslie Clemmons. She's actually gone back to Leslie Beauvais now, but her albums, are still there under Leslie Clemens, same last name. And there are two of them. One is called Stop the World, and we co-wrote all of those. And Waiting for My Conviction, which was her second album that I produced for her, and we co-wrote all of those except uh, two songs on that one. The title track, Waiting for My Conviction, is a song that was written by a wonderful songwriter named Kathy Smock. And Kathy also wrote another song on there on the same album called Like My Mother Said. Um, but those two are there. Uh, and Let's see. That, as far as my actually writing or co-writing anything, that might be it. But I mean, there's several other albums that I've produced for other people. Um, and did all the music arrangements, but I didn't necessarily write the songs or co-write the songs.
All
But
right.
Yeah, there are quite a few. But those one, two, three, four, five, including mine, that's a good five albums right there.
Sure, sure. Well, certainly I don't have a problem with putting the album that is under your name that you actually wrote. I can put all of your music if you're fine with it and if you're okay with it
Oh yeah,
and if you like.
absolutely.
What I can do is you can send me all of your music that is under your name on Spotify. You can email it, text it now. You can send it however you like, and then I can add it into my Aaron's Opinion playlist,
Yeah, you know what?
and
I
then
have a
I'll
links
send
that
you
I
back the. Oh, you do?
yeah, I have a links because I was trying to find them. I know I have them. They're in my inbox somewhere. But
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my niece was putting them together for another publicist, and she sent them all. I mean, all like Spotify, iHeart, Amazon, Deezer, everybody and their mother. And so I'll find them because I was trying to find them today. I'll find them and I'll send them to you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yes.
And then you'll get and then in return, I'll send you back my playlist and then you'll hear all the other musicians, some of which I'm sure you've heard of, others you never have, but they're all incredible. You know,
Wonderful.
when us blind people, when we get together and decide that we want to make music, there's some incredibly, ridiculously talented people, just like you and I, who produce beautiful, beautiful songs. And a lot of times they produce a song and they say, you know, I don't know, yeah, this song's not that great.
Yeah.
And then I listen to it and it's like I tell the person, "Are you aware that's good?" Like, can you even tell how good that was incredible. Like some of these music, I've interviewed some country blind people who are into, have written some country songs. This one young
Mm,
woman, she wrote several songs, two songs that are just so good. They're just perfect.
wow.
And you don't have to
Oh,
be
I'd love to
famous.
hear them.
I'll
No,
send
of course not.
you
Yeah.
send me your stuff. I'll send you my stuff, as we say.
Okay.
And then and then if you have questions about it, which ones they were, let me know. But in a sense, I want you to enjoy the playlist and you'll find them. Some of those people you may have heard of, or some of you'd be like, what? Who's this person? Never heard, but either way. So super
Oh
good.
yeah.
So how does, another question that I have received as a podcaster and people ask me all the time, Aaron, what are the steps to, producing an album, producing songs, how does it really work these days? So really walk us through, in other words, if somebody's a beginner, but they know they have a great song, how should they get it onto Spotify and how should they actually produce it? How does that, walk us through that process?
Well, basically, if I kind of come from the old school of production from a technical standpoint, although
Sure.
I did go into the software world kicking and screaming, but I'm a person with knobs and buttons and switches. That's what I really like. But hardly any company manufactures stuff like that anymore. So I had to get with the Logic Pro software and blah blah blah. But I still play everything. I'm a trained pianist, but I'm a keyboard player professionally, and I play everything. In fact, all the music that you hear of me, uh, all the instruments are me. Even the drums are me. But I'm playing them straight out on a keyboard, like a drummer would actually play drums. And I had some people that just completely flipped when they used to see me do things like that for um, um, long time ago. I did this music for this industrial project for Kraft General Foods, and um, and then another gospel music exercise video. This was Shop at Jerusalem, at least 25, 30 years ago. And these people would see me do these drum parts, and they're like, "My God, I thought there was a drummer in here." But producing, yes. You got a lot of really good songwriters and singer-songwriters, and they probably either play guitar or they might play keyboard or whatever, but they may not necessarily know how to produce. And what that means is, a producer kind of is to music what a director is to film. So when you see a movie or a TV show or whatever, you're looking not just at the actors, but you're looking at the director's vision. Everything that goes on that screen does not happen without the director. So same thing with music. Everything that you hear, all the instrumental parts, bass, drums, guitar, strings, keyboard, horns, whatever, um, none of that happens without the direction of the producer. And some of the, in my opinion, the best producers are those who actually play an instrument of some kind. Um, so if you can do that, if you have that expertise, then definitely get yourself a studio and make sure you find yourself a great engineer that you trust, and start building the song and start building the tracks and doing all of that and getting it mixed. And then if it's, well, yeah, you don't have to do an album anymore. You could do one song, you could do an EP, you could do whatever you want to do now. And you can work with, I've been working with a company called CD Baby, which has been around since the crust of the earth cooled after God took it out of the oven. And it is definitely the independent musician's best friend when it comes to distribution. So when you start working with CD Baby, once you've got your project together, they will make sure that your music is distributed to every possible streaming audio platform there is, not only in America, but all over the world. Um, and I mean, now as far as getting it exposed, because you could put things out all day, but if it's not exposed, then not too many people are going to know about it. Some people will find it, but not a lot. So there are promotion companies that will help you expose it, and they're not that expensive either. Companies like Playlist Booker is a company that I worked with Dan's second gospel album, Didn't I Tell You? And working with them, I mean, we were able to generate, oh my gosh, like over 1 million streams on Spotify alone. And that doesn't include all the other streaming audio platforms. And it really did not take that much money to do it at all, um, relative to what conventional radio promotion would be. My gosh, conventional radio promotion is, literally the cost of a new house or something. But but these days you don't have to have that anymore. You can, if you get it out on streaming audio, and you got a company like a Playlist Booker or something else, that's helping you to get it on curated playlists and things of that nature, and you're getting it exposed, and it's more exposed, and it's more exposed, and then you get out and start playing and let people see you and hear you, and things like, especially with Playlist Booker, for example, you can actually, no, I'm sorry, you can do this with Spotify. It doesn't have to be Playlist Booker. On Spotify, you can actually gauge where you're getting the majority of your streams from. I mean, literally, city, state, country. I mean, it's ridiculous. We could see how many streams Dan was getting in London and in Germany and in parts of Switzerland and parts of Sweden, parts of the United States, and then we could set up performances and go where the bulk of that activity is happening, because he's getting a lot of streams there anyway. So there are always ways of doing that, and you don't have to have a major label anymore to make it happen. I mean, it's still going to cost a little money, but it's not going to be insanity. But if you don't know how to produce, then the best thing to do is find someone who does. Uh, listen to other projects, especially perhaps produced by independent people, if you like the project, then it might really be a great investment to work with that producer, especially if they're giving you something that you want. A lot of producers are only versed in one or maybe two genres of music. I like working with a bunch of different things. Like I said, I did a country crossover album for a group called Teeter Gray, and their music. I mean, they used to call them cosmopolitan country because they're all the members were from upstate New York. Nobody was from the South, but it still was country, but it was kind of a slick country. And but nice stuff. And the album was called Blue Love, and I really enjoyed working on that. I also played piano on some of the songs, and was a part of producing and orchestrating and arranging, and some background vocals on a couple of songs and stuff like that. I didn't write anything on it, but so, but yeah, I mean, I hope that answers the question without
It does.
rambling too much.
I want you to, I want you to ramble.
Okay.
That's why you're here. You're here to talk. You're here to teach. You're here to talk to the world, and that's what I'm here to help you do. Great,
Thank you.
great. Absolutely. So you don't need a record label, but ironically, when I called your voicemail this morning, I learned that you have your own label, Verdict Records, right?
Yes. Uh-huh.
So what's that about?
Well, I started Verdict quite a while ago. I started it back in 93, 94, 94. And I did it because that was at the time, especially in R&B, when uh, gangster rap and that kind of stuff was beginning to take shape. And I mean, there's always been a lot of um, sexual imagery and stuff like that in pop music in general, not just R&B, but and at the time, of course, it was not chic to be independent. Um, but I just was like, you know what? I don't want to do certain things. I'm not going to grab my crotch and hump the stage. And it's just like, no, I'm sorry, I'm not going to do it. So, and there have been several people who have really been kicked in the teeth because they refuse to do it. One artist who is just wonderful, Shanice Wilson. I think she dropped the Wilson and eventually just called herself Shanice. But she had some big hits like I Love Your Smile, Saving Forever for You. Um, um, what's that first song she had? Can You Dance? And a lot of people thought that was Janet Jackson. But um, I don't remember the label she was with. I saw an unsung program on her on TV One about maybe 3 or 4 years ago. And she talked about how the label that she was with suddenly wanted her to do all this hoochie mama stuff. And she's like, no, I will not do it. And so, and I mean, like, and exactly, I'm sitting here going, why? Why do you want to do that? She's got a humongous fan base. You've already done 4 or 5 albums with her, and she's been doing great. So why, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But, she was getting older, and they wanted her to, quote, mature and become more sensual and blah, blah, blah. And she's like, no, sorry. So, but that was also where I was coming from in the 90s.
Sure, absolutely.
And it was going to be very hard to stay away from that if you were under contract to another label, to a major label, especially.
Hmm.
So I decided to try doing my own. And boy, that was tough because in the 90s, it just, the major labels were, of course, monopolizing everything.
Yeah.
But by the time you get 2005, 2006, 2007, and forward, it becomes a whole different ballgame. And I'm sitting here trying to remember
Sure.
this incredible artist who was independent before it was trendy to be independent. I cannot remember her name. Uh, but she got so little radio airplay, and it didn't matter. I mean, that child was selling millions of copies of her album with zip airplay. but she was traveling all over the place and performing all over the place. And um, I wish I could. I want to say her name starts with an A. Not Amanda, Andy, Annie, Annie. Wait a minute, Annie, Annie. Somebody. Monkey. I can't remember her name,
Well,
but
if she's listening out there, she should comment below. So
oh, I know
if
exactly.
anybody out there
Yes,
knows who it is, somebody probably will get
Annie
back to us.
DeFranco. That's her name, Annie DeFranco.
Now, I don't know who it
Yes.
is, but the name very vaguely rings a bell. I don't know who it is, but maybe I've heard that name before without realizing it. Yeah.
Yeah, you probably have. I mean, I don't know what she's doing now, but
Right.
and I haven't really heard anything about her in at least 15 or 20 years. But she
Right.
also had her own label called Righteous Babe Records, and she had other people on that label. I want to say Judith Owen was another artist on there, and I love her. She had this album called Happy This Way, which was released around maybe 2008, 2009. I know she's done some other things, but she's wonderful. I think she's British, and she does a lot of piano vocal stuff, real simple in terms of instrumentation, but she plays beautiful piano.
Sure. Sure.
Yeah.
So,
So that's where the Verdict Records thing came from.
okay. So what now? Verdict Records today, presently 2025, Rod. So what does Verdict
Hmm.
Records do now?
Well, Verdict Records is getting ready to release Roderick Clemmons' second album called Racket, which will hopefully be released by or sometime a little before the end of the year. I'm actually timing it because I'm thinking that this holiday movie, A Genie for Christmas, will be coming out. We're pushing for it to come out to be released on um, Veterans Day this year, November 11th, which happens to be Jeannie's birthday. She would be 96, I believe, at that point. And so we want to have the movie released on that day. And the theme song, That's What Love Is, I'm trying to time it so that it's the first single release, which I would probably put it out around maybe early August or something like that. So it has some time to build some momentum. And because it is a theme song of a movie, it'll probably be a little bit easier to actually garner some pretty serious radio attention with it. Otherwise, you're
Absolutely.
spending at least 50, 60, $70,000 to promote one song. But I didn't say that out loud, and you didn't hear it either.
Except for the fact that you know you're being recorded. But
Yes,
yes, except for that, no, neither one of us heard that. So what I would want to know, and probably there's a reason why I'm asking twofold. So do you specifically, and I'm guessing I already know what the answer is. So have you ever signed blind people? Have you ever worked with other blind musicians? Just speaking of Verdict Records, do they work with blind musicians?
I would if I knew any that were really good,
Hmm.
but I don't. I
Well,
have
we'll
never
get
met another
well.
blind musician that is.
Well, that's interesting. We'll circle back to that off air and on air a little, but we'll circle back to that the more we connect off air within my WhatsApp community, and I'll
Yes.
definitely put you in touch with people that may or might be interested in working with you. Um, yeah. So Genie for Christmas. Let's kind of shift over to this lovely lady at the Arkansas
Mm,
School for the Blind, right? She
yes.
apparently, and I am remembering now, was in one of the Facebook groups that we're in, and I saw this beautiful post. And you were saying how, oh, this lady Jeannie really impacted people. Now, I'm from the East Coast. I've never been to Arkansas. So who is that person? What do you know about her life, and what did she do at the school? And really unfold it.
She was definitely what we would call the Pied Piper of that school. She was whatever she said or did is what everybody else imitated, and she was just a magical, uh, somewhat eccentric, um, ridiculously musically skilled person who delighted in working with students and children who were not supposed to be able to do what the quote normal unquote world says that they can't do. So if that makes any sense. So when I joined her choir, like we didn't just sit around and sing for the Arkansas School for the Blind all the time. She took us everywhere. We toured every spring, and we would go sing in public high schools all around the state of Arkansas and in other states in that region and things like that. These great big public high schools singing in their gymnasiums and stuff like that. Now nobody could sight read, and very few of us could see well enough to look at a conductor. So she was teaching us everything by ear, and we were doing 4-part, 6-part, sometimes 8-part harmony. We were doing mostly, popular tunes and stuff like that that were arranged for chorus, or if they weren't, she actually did it herself, and they were beautiful things. And sometimes she would incorporate some of us dancing along with the songs that we were doing. And anyway, we would go to these schools and we would finish these concerts, and these kids would be losing their minds. You would swear that we were the Partridge Family on a bus. I mean, these kids were running after us when we would get ready to get back on the bus and go on to the next town. It was just crazy. But she really enjoyed that. And now a lot of schools, especially where we went to perform, a lot of schools tried to hire her away from the School for the Blind because of what she was able to accomplish with us. And they thought it was so fantastic. And it's like, well, here you have your pick of from thousands of students, and you can do this and you can do that, and blah, blah, blah. And she's like, yeah, 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 but whatever. And of course, they were offering her buckets of money and whatever. And she's like, no, I don't want to do that. I love working with kids who do what you all say they shouldn't be able to do, and they're doing it. And when we would do the Christmas productions and stuff, especially the elementary students, they were doing mostly um, plays and things like that. And it was just amazing. These were not these little stupid 4-line recitation things or whatever. These were kids that were actually like, young actresses and actors, and they were moving around on stage, and she would choreograph them. In fact, one of the retired teachers from the school, uh, who also contributed money to help me hire the screenplay writer, because I had to raise the money to do that. She said to me, she said, I would come to the Christmas productions, and I mean, I teach there, but I, I completely forgot that you all were blind and visually impaired. I'm looking at you and going, oh yeah. And she would, say, how in the world does she get them to do that? But, she said I could tell after a while that the movable aspects of things, she had those kids who could see the most choreographed around those who could see a little bit less, and then those who could see a little bit less, and a little bit less, and a little bit less, till you get to those who were totally blind. But everybody was moving in sync together so well and had been so rehearsed that if you didn't know that these kids were of some level of low vision, you wouldn't know it. My own parents used to say that, and they would come to those things every single year. But so Jeannie, she also was a taskmaster. She would not allow you to use anything as an excuse not to do something, and definitely she would not let you use your disability. Oh no, mm-mm. We never even discussed things like disabilities. I didn't even realize that my disability was really as pronounced as it was until I went to college. But when I was in high school, everybody was on some level of the same thing. So who cares? We just, we just went on about our business and did our thing. But she and the rest of those teachers, but definitely she treated us completely normally. Um, if you were not preparing and rehearsing and stuff the way that she knew that you could, she would certainly put the fear of the Lord in you. But but she did that because she knew you could do it, and you knew that that's why she did it. even if you were being rebellious, but you still knew she's not asking me to do something that I can't do. So if she's asking me to do it, then I can do it. And very inspiring. But I remember when I did my senior recital in high school, and I was scared to death. I had already done competitions. I had won competitions and scholarships and cash prizes. I had been on some regional PBS music shows and stuff, and I had already been accepted to IU. So I don't know why in the world I was so scared, but I was just terrified. And I remember I was backstage. She came backstage and she said, "How you feeling?" And I'm just like, "I am just, I don't even know." And she put her hands on my shoulders and she said, "Listen to me. First of all, I want you to know that this auditorium is packed. There's not another seat in here. But I also want you to know that there is probably not another person in this room right now who can do what you're about to do. So you've been rehearsing and playing, competing, auditioning. I mean, you've been doing this stuff now for weeks and months and some of it even years. And so, you can play this stuff backwards. So just do it. I mean, you've done it. And then she was a very biblical person, and she shared with me her favorite scripture. I believe it's in Ephesians, and it says, "Having done all, stand." And so she's saying, so what that means you've done everything you can do. So now tonight, it's just you just do it. Just go out there and just do it. And so I was like, well, okay, okay. So, so she gave me a kiss on the cheek, and then she hugged me, and then she turned me around to face going out toward the stage, and she said, it kind of reminded me of the wizard in The Wizard of Oz when he dismissed them to go get the broomstick. She turned me around and she said, "Now go." And so I went, and I'll never forget that. I mean, I was so inspired. I'm like, she said I could do it, so here we go. And I've been doing it anyway, so why stop now? But that's the kind of person that she was. She worked with what she had. And I remember when I went to college at IU. Of course, now I am, with the pièce de résistance of music and young music students, and listening to orchestras of 17, 18, 19, 20 year olds that sound like they're members of the New York Philharmonic or something. And and choruses. I mean, when I was at IU, every music major had to be in some ensemble. So I was in University Chorale, which was one of the better choruses at the school. And we did big works like the Verdi Requiem, Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, the Fauré Requiem, on and on it goes. And and I remember calling her one night, and I was talking to her on the phone, and I said, "Jeannie, you should be here. This is where you belong. My God, I mean, this is a formidable smorgasbord of music, and this is what." And she laughed and she said, "I really appreciate that, and I could have done that, but I didn't want to. I like doing what I'm doing." And she said, "You know what? Just to case in point, if I weren't here, I wouldn't have met you. And so, you're my crown. You are my victory and my triumph. And so I'm watching you do what you do, and I'm so proud and I'm so excited." And her one of her twin daughters told me that as we were working on the screenplay. And she told me, she said, "Bob, my mother talked about you for breakfast, lunch, dinner, cocktails." I mean, whatever the conversation was, somehow it would come back to you. And she just adored you, and I adored her too. I loved her, and we became the very best of friends after I graduated. Well, I mean, we became great friends, even though you can't show a student favoritism, but those
You
kids weren't
can.
stupid.
You
Yeah,
can
I
show.
know. And
There's always some favoritism that people still always pick up on it. They always do.
yeah, and those kids weren't stupid, and they didn't care. They knew that. I mean, a lot of them helped to contribute financially to the screenplay too, because they
Right.
knew. They understood the importance of her to me and to all of them. You know, most of them are not in any way, shape, or form professional musicians, but they loved her. They adored her. If she said, you know, I don't know, whatever, jump off of the stage, that's what you did. She never said that, but,
You
but,
definitely can, you convey her. You definitely send her. You definitely transmit her aura to us in the ear of the listener. Absolutely. A
oh,
beautiful, strong
I'm so
Yeah.
glad. And I really can't wait for this movie to come out because when people see this, it actually is reminiscent of, and this movie just came on last week. No, yeah, last week, last Sunday, on Turner Classic Movies, Mr. Holland's Opus. And it reminds you of that. In fact, as we were working on the screenplay, I had a wonderful screenplay writer, Sheila Boyd. And I think she was associated with that film and also What's Love Got to Do with It and a few other movies like that. But she was sort of patterning the feeling of A Genie for Christmas after Mr. Holland's Opus. And I saw that when it first came out in 95. I had never seen it again until last Sunday. And when I stumbled on it, and fortunately it was just starting, I was like, oh gosh, here we go. And so I just decided to, sit in my little wonderful rocker recliner and chill out. And oh my God, I cried, I laughed, I clapped, I cheered. I did
Yeah.
all kinds of stuff. And that's exactly the way it's going to be when you see A Genie for Christmas. That's
So when
precisely how
can
it's
we
going to
see a
be.
genie for Christmas? When's it coming out?
Well, it looks like okay, let's try one more time with feeling. Edit. No. It looks like we're going to try to have this ready for release on her birthday, which is November 11th of
Oh,
this year.
right.
Yeah.
Sure,
So
sure.
I believe she would be 96, I think. She and my
And
mother
when did
were almost the
now,
same
Rod,
age.
when did Jeannie pass away? Recently, right?
2011. Yeah, it
Okay.
was
So in other
November
words,
of 2011.
so the Jeannie passed away in 2011. So she
Right.
would have been in her, let's see, a
Should
upper
about 84, 85,
low
something like that.
80s. Yeah,
Yeah,
mid 80s. Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Interesting. Interesting.
yes.
Yeah.
Because she and my mother were 2 months apart. I think
Mm-hmm.
Jeannie's birthday would come first in November. Then my mother's birthday, same year, would come in January.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh, when
Um,
she died, it was. Oof. Mm.
yeah.
I just Family Christmas, and I got to talk to her about maybe a month or so before she passed, and she had had a stroke, but her short-term memory was kind of gone, but her long-term memory was fine. She knew exactly who I was, and she sounded fine. If I didn't know that something was wrong, I wouldn't automatically know it. But
Right.
her daughter, told me, she said, "Look, Mom, her short-term memory is not that great. So if you say something that she's not familiar with, or is very recent, you may have to say it several times before she gets it." But
Right.
other than that, I mean, and that's what her daughter's name is Vicky, one of her daughters. And Vicky told me, she said, "My mother was strong. She didn't want to go anywhere. I mean, she was just like, no, I am not leaving." And I said, "Yeah, I'll bet. I'm sure she was because she lived." And I mean, she's one of those people that lived out loud, and you loved it, and you followed her, you imitated her because she just
It's really
lived life.
important. It's
Yeah.
really important. I've met a lot of people like that where they really have an impact on people and they really
Yes.
influence and they really make the right impression is the important message here. They make the right
Absolutely.
impression, and then when they do pass, everybody remembers them just as
Yes.
well as they did
Oh, yes.
yesterday. And it's very sweet. Yeah.
I think I remember you saw the post when I shared Anthony Stevens' endorsement letter from the American Foundation for the Blind. I shared that on I can't
I
remember the
saw the
post.
you emailed it. I saw the email. I
Right.
forget if I shared. his particular post. I don't know. It's all a blur because there's so many posts. It's all a blur. What
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I could have. I mean, I could have shared it. I don't actually know. I don't. I
Well, I
really don't.
remember seeing your name, and it was I don't know which group on Facebook it was.
I
Might have
think
been
you know where
Blind
it
Pen
was.
Pals or something like
Yeah,
that.
Rod. I think it was Blind Pen Pals, and that's where I got the inspiration to contact you originally.
Yeah,
But
yes.
you very well. In fact, I'll ask it. So, have you ever heard of an Aaron Richmond or Aaron's opinion before I contacted you?
No, but that doesn't mean anything.
Right. No, I get that. I get what that means.
Yeah,
No, but of course, I had never heard of a Rod before I noticed you. So that doesn't. Yeah.
right.
It's all a blur out there. There's so much content creation and so much to listen to. It's just all a cacophony.
Yes.
Absolutely,
And I have
absolutely.
not really gotten into podcasts until I'd say the last maybe 2 years.
You should get into it.
Oh, I know, I know. Well, now I am because I really like it now. I'm like, oh goodness, I don't have to sit here and listen to CNN regurgitate stuff over and over again. Nothing
Right.
too bad about CNN, but there's all kind of ways to get information and good information and positive information and encouraging
Hmm.
information and all that stuff. So
Absolutely.
yeah, I like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. And we're always here for you in the Aaron's Opinion family to support you on your journey and make sure that you can get into podcasting yourself. And because I
Oh,
find
that
that,
would be fun.
oh, that would be so good. I found that podcasting can be, well, I have some ideas. We'll go over them offline. We'll connect another time soon offline and we'll go over some ideas maybe that I have or some suggestions once you get more connected with the community around Aaron's Opinion.
Right.
The more you participate, of course, just like anything else, and I know you won't take this personally. I've found over the years some guests participate a lot, and then others, not at all. And you've worked with people like that too over the years, where so
Oh yeah.
you meet them once, and then they do a great job, and then they disappear. Or you meet someone like you, and hopefully you don't disappear. You keep
Oh no.
participating and keep being active, and that's what we
Absolutely.
want. But of course, I'm sure you understand
Oh yeah.
until you show me. Until you show me what you got, until you show me how active you are, I don't know how active you are. That's why you have to prove it. But
Right.
absolutely, that's a ton of interesting stuff. And acting is one of the things that that's one of my side interests and side hobbies. Always wondered over the years, oh, when would I get to, have a chance maybe to act in some sort of TV show or
Oh
something like that.
wow.
I
Well,
would,
this
yeah.
this TV show that I was mentioning
Mm-hmm.
that I can't say the name yet, but
Right.
about the lawyer,
Right.
the young lawyer. I remember presenting the idea to um, the producer of A Genie for Christmas. Her name is Denise Carlson, and she definitely comes from wonderful Hollywood royalty with Star Wars and Indiana
Mm-hmm.
Jones stuff and whatnot. So it was just such a thrill to work with people like this. Um, but so I asked her about this project, and I said, I'd like to present this to Voyage Media. That was the original company that introduced me to Denise and Sheila. And so I didn't send her the treatment. Actually, I wasn't even through with the treatment yet. I just told her a little bit about it. And I thought, I'm thinking movie. And she said, you know what, Rod? That's it's a fantastic story. But it's not a movie. It sounds more like an episodic TV show, like a half hour
Yes.
Netflix or something.
You know, I actually have to agree. It does, but I understand
Yeah.
why you want it. I understand why it is a movie, but I can understand where she would say that. I also can hear it as a podcast where you take the audio and create podcast episodes that release on a schedule that people can listen to in a group or something like that. I can also
Yeah,
picture
that's true
this
too.
story
Right.
being like an audio drama. You could turn this into an audio drama
Right.
too. Not no casting, no shame on the film. It's amazing, I'm sure. But I'm also saying that one of
Mm.
the other areas that I've dabbled in is voice acting, and I can tell you that audio dramas, hey, they might not be applicable to you in this situation, but still, audio dramas can be really, really cool when done with
Oh
the right
yeah.
cast, right timing, right flavor.
Absolutely. I'm
They can
sure.
be
Yeah.
certainly not as exciting as a film. Certainly not. And I'm not comparing it. But what I am saying is that there's a place for someone to say, oh, well, it might be a 30-minute episodes, a series on that person. The other thing too, that I could see is you could also do a nonfiction, basically a documentary about this person, and considering how much you loved her and how much you knew and how much you were affected in a positive way, eventually consider producing a documentary series where you
That's
release,
very true.
so there's the reason why the story is great with the Genie for Christmas is because there are several different iterations and several different things that probably need to be done to fully bring it all the way out of there. But I don't know.
Yes,
That's up to
yes.
you, obviously. But I can understand completely where someone would say, well, it's more of a this. To me, it's not a matter of more of a Netflix or more of a podcast or more of a, these are all things that you could dabble in your mind, in your creator's mind, and try and bounce ideas off me and other creators, other producers, and see, hey, what's going to really work, what's not going to work. But I would only want you to do stuff that works because so much of our society is things that don't work. I'm sick of the stuff
Right.
that doesn't work. Like it's tough, you know. Um,
Yeah.
funny story that's actually kind of cute back to my high school days. Once we were in a classroom and the teacher was old, and you can laugh because we laughed really hard at this one. So he was playing like an old documentary, right, on TV. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But he was an older guy, and he taped it on those good old VHSs. You remember those,
Ah,
right?
yes. Yep.
Okay, you probably know where this is going. It was recorded so long ago that it still had commercials from 25 years ago. I'm not I'm not exaggerating. So it's really weird that I remember this. Somebody raises their hand. Mr. Smith, just like this for you guys watching at home. Mr. Smith, I really liked the documentary today, but I just want you to know the commercials that were being aired, that's for the stuff that doesn't work anymore. So then they reviewed all the commercials and realized, and now we have a commercial for this, and that fixes that commercial. Now we have a commercial for this. I'm not exaggerating, Rod. I mean, there's a lot of times where I joke around, but I'm not joking about that. That's how funny it was. The show was so old that it was for the stuff that doesn't work anymore. That you can't. So the commercials were all the stuff where, in other words, the commercials were so old that the stuff in the before column of the commercial is the stuff that would be in the before column of the commercials today, showing what doesn't work now, but it worked then, but it didn't work then either. There you go. The point is, there's a lot of, I could do stand up. Trust me. I think I just lied. Especially if Rod's in the audience, I could do stand up. But look, the important thing, the takeaway here is I see how much you love the arts and the podcasting and coming and talking about this stuff and coming up to the microphone and sharing the way that people impacted you in a positive way. So what I'm saying is definitely dive into that movie. That's going to be great. We want to know about it certainly at Aaron's Opinion. But I would
Yeah, and I
also,
definitely intend to do the big. We're going to be doing the big publicity, talk show circuit thing. So we
sure.
would definitely. I will definitely get Denise to come, to you and contact you and just say,
Wow.
look,
Amazing
let's.
honor. Amazing honor. Seriously, that's no joke.
Yes.
To be able to talk to somebody on my podcast on Aaron's Opinion who, as you say, Hollywood royalty, the likes of
Yes.
projects like that, that would
Yes.
be no honor would be greater in my life. And that's why we do
Oh,
podcasts because it's a privilege to host a podcast and it's an absolute honor. And that would be I'm saying go for it. Give out my number, give it out, send it out
absolutely.
there.
Yep.
But no, I think there's circling back to this. I think there's a lot of intellectual value in taking the constructive criticism and the positive criticism and negative criticism and saying, Rod, the movie's going to be great. And I know it will be, but also don't stop at the movie. Make a documentary series,
Mm-hmm.
make a audio drama, make a podcast about that. That's so
Mm-hmm.
nice, and someone like Jeannie would definitely say, make it. Obviously she would
Oh
want you
yeah.
to do that. So it's obviously in good taste. Now there's other things, and I'm not going to name them, but there's other things in history that have been made and produced and it's been in poor taste. This is not an example of poor taste. This is an example of clearly genuine good taste. And,
Yes. Thank you.
yeah, absolutely. The other thing too, you mentioned it, and let's circle back to it, man. You mentioned that you're producing or that you're working on some sort of cartoon thing. Now, cartoons for you at home, and Roderick knows this, but cartoons, although you would think that cartoons are less sophisticated and less intensive than live
Mm-hmm.
action, you would be wrong.
Yes.
cartoons are ridiculously labor intensive, and it's a
Yep.
huge honor to be a voice actor in a cartoon.
Oh,
And,
yes.
between you and me, that's now that I have discovered as a teacher and as a broadcaster that I have this voice, I've always wondered, hey, when am I going to get to be a voice actor for one? But for another, though, that is one of my dreams is to be on a cartoon as a voice actor portraying, I don't know, me.
I could see that. I can hear that in the way that you speak because you
I appreciate
definitely
it.
have that broadcaster sound
I appreciate
to
it.
your voice.
Especially if
Yeah.
a
Oh,
cartoon
totally.
needs a broadcaster scene where they have to call a podcast scene, and then I could be on a cartoon like that. But
Exactly.
so what? Just spitballing, throwing out ideas. I'm suspicious that you'll remember some of them, obviously. But I'm also quite a character, and I do realize that too. So this cartoon, I know you can't say what it's called, or I forget if you said it, but
Yeah, I
so
did.
go over it a little bit more. So like, kind of unfold that.
Okay, the cartoon is called the Doodie Doos. It's spelled Doodie. That's the first word, and then Doos. Doodie Doos. And it came about, interestingly enough, when my contemporary gospel artist and best friend, Dan Kenneth, um, uh, would sometimes call me when he was, going to, I think he used to walk to work in the morning because he just loves to walk. And so he would walk to work. And Dan is very much, he's like a big kid. Um, he loves things like cartoons and, G.I. Joe figures. And he used to be a big candy freak until he had a bout with cancer a few years ago, but he's fine now. He's totally cancer free, and some of his candy appetite has come back, but not nearly what it was, which is probably a good thing. But so he would sometimes call me at some ungodly hour of the morning on his way to work, and he would just be singing this stupid thing, just going doody 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 doo.
So he would call Rod. That's not calling you. That's just calling you to pester you. So he
Yes.
would just call to play. He was just playing because he needed someone to play with,
At
and he knew you would answer.
6:15 in the morning. I'm
For
like, are
sure, he
you
was playing
sick?
with you.
It's, but we got to the point where we started thinking about different scenarios, especially from him that he grew up in, that were just so so insane that you had to laugh because if you didn't laugh, you spit nails. But but and he would tell me about this stuff, and after a while, I was like, you know what? Have you ever thought about turning this into a cartoon? And he goes, yes, I have. In fact, he said what I keep thinking about is like a cartoon that almost reminds you of the dysfunction of All in the Family, kind of like that, and with these characters they don't look quite human, but they're not animal, but they're just sort of somewhere wherever they are, but they speak and they live in the land of Doodie Doo. Where they live is called Doodie Doo. And I remember when we first presented this idea to one of the producers of Voyage Media, and we sent her, I think, one of the script scenarios, and she was dying. She was like, "Oh my gosh, this is what you call a water cooler TV show. People will come to work the next morning, get around the water cooler, and go, Child, did you see the crazy Doody Doos last night?" And and I mean, it is truly hysterical, but it definitely is a cartoon that pushes the envelope. It is. Um, it's an adult cartoon, but not when I say adult, I don't mean pornographic or whatever, by any means. But it is not a yippee skippy kind of cartoon. And um, he did most of the script scenarios. I would help in a few ways and stuff like that. Um, Yeah, okay. So for example, I don't know if you recall a few years ago, maybe about 7 or 8 years ago, when Colonial Penn, I think it was Colonial Penn, had this commercial. Oops, maybe I should have named the company. But anyway, um, had this commercial where this woman comes up to her friend and, she says, "Hi, Anne." And the woman says, "Hi, Evelyn." And Anne says, "I know it's been so hard since you lost your mother." And so the other woman says, "Yeah, it's been really rough, but I'm okay." And then all of a sudden she goes, "Oh, look, it's the check I've been waiting for from the insurance company." So we turned it around and we called the company in the episode, we called it Colony Pencil instead of Colonial Pen. And and so the same kind of thing happens. But then when this woman gets hurt, she goes, "Oh, child, that's the chick I've been waiting for. I can go get my hair done now." And it just gets to be absolutely crazy. It is just totally ridiculous, and it wants to be to the point where your jaw just drops. Like, I don't believe she just said that. But so that's kind of what the Doodie Doos are about. It's meant to be it's kind of in your face and sort of to show the viewer how ridiculous that everybody can be sometimes, and how you can look at things in such a crazy and ridiculous way, sometimes very narrow-minded, and you don't realize that you're doing it until either it's too late or somebody points it out, or maybe you never realize it, depending on who you are and who you're around. But yeah, that's basically the thrust of that show. What I'm doing mostly is the music, and I've already created a theme song, and I have different theme music things. I mean, we don't have a completed script yet. We're working now with another producer and another screenplay writer for the pilot script. So hopefully we'll be getting that together inside of the next maybe 3 or 4 weeks, and then we'll be looking for some voice actors to do the pilot, because I want to try to push this and get this thing on the air hopefully by the fall. I know that's a little pushed, but it's not. It could be done. But but yeah. So that's what that's all about.
I got to tell you, I love it. I love those risque cartoons. And I love, and I'm giving you a pretty obvious clue here. I love voice acting and I love these types of cartoons. So, as we say in the business, hey, let's catch up off air sometime, mate. And let's at very least bounce ideas off each other, because
Oh
this is
yeah,
I
absolutely.
mean, and I'm a pretty messed up guy. So I have some really, I mean, if you need risque ideas, if you need ideas that are just wrong, I mean,
I'm sure we do.
just come to me and I could probably write a pilot, except the problem is you probably wouldn't want to air it. Okay. It would just be too scary. Okay.
There
But I
was a
can,
paratransit driver that I was telling about this show, and she said, "You know what? I'd watch it just because of the name. I'd want to know the Duty Dudes. What is that?"
see that just, I got to tell you, for a show like that, you can already tell that it's for adults, and you can already tell that it's going to be a little crazy. But that's what we need
Yeah,
in this
right.
society.
Yes,
You've done
exactly.
Roderick Clemmons, you have done a spectacular job of portraying everything you're working on.
Oh, thank you.
Knowledgeable way and a really entertaining and fun way. You're just a fun guy. And
Thank you.
you've come up to my microphone as we walk towards the end of a beautiful conversation. You have come to me in such a, there's something you're just so sweet and so strong and so aware. You're very self-aware of what's going on around the world. And
Oh,
we're
thank
just
you.
honored, absolutely honored to have you in the Aaron's Opinion family. And trust me, the Aaron's Opinion family wants you to be successful. As I say, the greatest success I can have is to make sure that Rod's more successful than Aaron.
Oh,
Seriously.
that's
Let me
very
help you
kind
out.
of you.
Well, it's not only is it kind, but it's true. I actually have an interest in all your projects, and I want to make sure that as time permits and as it is professionally and as it is appropriate. I want to make sure that if you ever need my help or want to bounce stuff off me, you can always come to me if you like.
Oh,
So,
wonderful,
with that in
wonderful.
mind, though, before you get off to your duty doos, what I really want to know, yeah, I like that duty doos. So you gotta have somebody with that voice.
Yes, exactly.
Duty doos. 8 p.m. See,
I,
that's the voice you need. Yeah, actually, I kind of can do it. Yeah.
I
Um,
could see you doing the voice of the
well,
main
okay,
character,
don't
female
now be
character.
careful what you're
Yeah.
being recorded. Be careful what you're saying
Uh-huh.
because be careful what I'll want when once we hang up. Okay, just okay, don't get people's hopes up. You know,
Well, I
don't need
won't.
to crush
I'll just
people's
say I could see you
dreams.
being one of the voices. I could hear it.
I appreciate it. What I really want to know is so, Roderick, if you could ask Aaron Richmond Aaron's opinion, only one question to really. Oh, actually, no. Wait. Okay, rewind it. So, Rod, what do you like to do? What is one thing that you really like to do in your free time that I never would have guessed you do? And I guess you do a lot. So, what's something you do in your free time that I never knew you actually did? What do you think?
Oh, I love to read, and I love
You clearly
doing.
do. You're very well
Yeah.
spoken. And not saying that other guests aren't. It's just I can tell that you're a reader because of the way you tell
Yes.
stories, your prose, your narration. I can tell you're a reader. You absolutely
Oh,
are.
yes.
What's
I
your favorite
love
book?
to.
What's your favorite author?
Um. hmm. Ooh. I have I you know, I'm gonna say my favorite author, and it's really tough to say it because I'm thinking of three of them. But my favorite one, I love her, is Fannie Flagg. I love that woman. I want to meet her. Fannie, if you're listening, I definitely want to. Do you know her? Do you know her
No,
name?
nope. Honestly, no. But
Oh,
I'm sure but
you.
she's great. I'm sure.
Oh,
I
you
simply don't know her.
know some of her work. Did you ever? Are you aware of the movie um, Fried Green Tomatoes?
The title rings a bell. Very loud bell in my mind, but I can't quite place it.
Well, she wrote the book. The book is called Fried Green Tomatoes at the Whistle Stop Cafe.
Mm.
And it is, Fannie Flagg is definitely what I like to call the best little American storyteller there ever was. I mean, and her books are all about friendship. They're funny, but they're not like sappy. They're hysterical. And it just, oh my gosh. And there's a book that she wrote called Welcome to the World, Baby Girl. I would encourage anyone to read that book. In fact, I have encouraged lots of friends to read that. And I presented it actually to a producer as an idea to possibly create it as a stage theater piece, musical. And so she read the book and she called me one day and she goes, "Do you know what? I am so mad at you." I'm like, "Why would I do?" She said, "Child, I cannot tell you how many times, this is when we were living in New York. She said, I can tell you how many times I have been on my way to work, which is Lower Manhattan. And the next thing I know, I'm way out in Brooklyn somewhere because I've been reading these stupid books and I can't stop reading it. I cannot put it down. This book is crazy." And
Silly stuff. That's cute. Yeah.
but it's a wonderful, wonderful story. It's complex. It's complex. Yes, it is complex in its simplicity. A lot of times you would expect that to be the other way around, but but it is very complex until you get to the end and you go, "What? Oh, come on, are you for real?" You know, but but you don't get there until the tail end, and it doesn't. I mean, now it's by no means boring. It's holding your attention all the way, but then that end is just like I remember I was reading, of course, the audio version of it, and I was doing something in the kitchen, and I heard this, and I went, wait, hold on, hit that rewind button. And I must have done that about 4 or 5 times before I finally was like, oh gosh, I can't believe that this person just did what they just did. I mean, but it really is. It's just beautiful. It is so beautiful. And she writes in not necessarily series, but some of the same characters will appear in different books. But yeah, so that's another idea that I have, and I've created a lot of music for it, but I'm not a theater lyricist. I don't think I am. And so I'm looking around. Actually, if anybody's listening, I am looking around for somebody that could actually write the lyrics to these songs that would be a part of this musical. Um, I'm not necessarily trying to throw it at Broadway because Broadway is so expensive that producers tend to be frightened of completely original, brand new stuff on Broadway because it costs so much money to mount stuff on Broadway. So what ends up happening is it ends up getting mounted in places like other equity theater companies like Arkansas Repertory Theater or Actors Theater in Louisville or the Alabama Theater or something like that. And I mean, these are very reputable theaters. They are unionized, and all of that. And that's how a lot of original theater now survives is through those circuits and stuff like that. So, I'd love to see something like this be mounted in like an Arkansas Rep or Actors Theater. I think a lot of the members of the cast of Cheers came from Actors Theater, actually. And
Probably.
so, but yeah, Fanny Flag is the answer to my question.
Beautiful. If you, Rod, can ask Aaron Richmond or Aaron's opinion, only one more question to really make me sweat, to see if I'm worth my salt as a podcaster. What do you really want to ask?
Oh, um, um, Merry Christmas. Um, okay. Out of idle curiosity, and not that it really matters, but just idle curiosity, who is the most known personality that you've had on this program?
That's an interesting question. And it's an interesting answer because known to one could be known to nobody or
Right.
everybody or one
Yes.
person.
Yep.
And I will answer. Here's an important lesson I try to teach students and try to teach people. It's never about the numbers, although we look.
hmm
It's
Right.
never about the countries, although it's good to know. What it's
hmm
about is the quality and the genuine nature of the content that you take ownership of. So that's what it's about
Absolutely.
for Aaron's opinion. How much do I grip it and take ownership of it and say, even if this gets one download or even if it gets zero, I own it. And
Yes.
that's the life lesson.
Yes.
I've interviewed, I'm sure you know him, and I've interviewed him, and I'm sure it's generally. I'll name drop this once because I'm sure in this case you probably have worked with him, or at least know who it is. I've interviewed Gino Marks, and people like that. I've interviewed several of the other. You do know who Gino Marks is, right?
No, I don't.
You
Oopsie.
don't. You don't, huh?
But like I said,
Well,
that doesn't mean anything.
well, you need to know who that is. We'll catch up off air.
I like the
It's
name.
a well, and anybody would like the name Rod Clemmons, but if they don't know who it is, why do you care if they like your name? I've interviewed several of the other, yet not all, but several of the other high profile blind creators over the years. But most importantly, I've interviewed people who thought they could never do a podcast, never came to one
Mm,
conversation. I've interviewed people who this was their first time behind the microphone. For you, it's not. For many, it is. I've
hmm
interviewed people who were scared. You aren't scared. for me,
Mm-hmm.
for you know, but those are truly the most important, or I don't want to say most important, but those are the answer is the most known. It's the intellectual answer is I have no idea, because one man's trash is another's treasure. In other words, one
Yes,
episode that goes in one man's ear and out the other's ear might go into Rod's ear and stay there. You know,
absolutely.
you
Yeah.
never know, and that's the answer. So the only thing I
Yes,
can say is I just do the best I can, and thank you
absolutely.
for joining us. Absolutely, man. If someone wants to get in touch with Rod Cummings, how do they do that? Apart from clicking the beautiful description, which you did send, by the way, how does somebody get in touch?
Well, of course, I'm on Facebook, facebook.com/Rod Clemmons. And Clemmons is spelled Clemmons. Some people think it's Clements.
That's a
But
similar name, but I deal with
yeah.
that with Richmond, Richards, Richardson. Everybody has similar names. Yeah.
Oh, I'm
Hmm.
sure. And it's Rod, and a lot of people call me
We see it.
Rob.
Well, I don't know. Right. It says right here, ROD. You know,
Oh, I had production clients that would see emails from me on a daily basis, and they're looking at it, Rod, and then they come to a session and go, "Hey, Ron, how are you?"
it's it, well, like we were going over. Your name's really not Rod. It's Roderick. Okay. If you just
Yes,
call
it is
yourself
Roderick.
Roderick, we wouldn't have problems with you being called Ronnie and Johnny and Bobby and funny story about that name thing. As you know, my name is, and I say it two ways because you can hear the difference. My name is, you may either call me Aaron or you may call me Aaron, but don't call me late for dinner. The other thing I'll tell you is anytime I meet people who are sighted in public places around where I live, I'm not going to say where I live right now, but wherever it is, I meet people. I say, nice to meet you, Aaron. My name's Aaron. And then people always say, but your name's Aaron, I thought. I said, no, it's spelled Aaron, but no, I pronounce it Aaron. I'll tell you why.
Hmm,
And we'll leave with this cute story to end on a silly note.
okay.
I was in a location at a coffee store.
Hmm.
And, you go up to the counter and you say what you want. And I said what I want. And they said, what's your name? And I said, my name is Aaron. And then they wrote it down on the computer. I go over to the place where you get the drink, whatever place it
Hmm.
was, what it was. We aren't going to say it, but I go
Right.
over there. I stand in line. Order for Eric. Order for, let's see, 20 minutes later. Order for Carol. Liz. Eventually, I start having a tantrum because it's coffee, man. Give me my coffee. So I say, I need to speak to the manager. I said, okay, well, why? Well, I've been here for 20 minutes. And they said, well, why didn't you take your coffee? I said, well, my name's Aaron. They said, oh, we thought you were Carol. So
Carol.
I said to myself, never, ever, ever will I call myself Aaron again. Enough. That's how I invented Aron.
Aron, yes, absolutely. Oh my gosh.
And I mean nobody messes me with that coffee shop. Okay? It's Aron.
I love it.
There you go. He's Roderick Clemmons. I'm
Yes.
Aaron's Opinion. We'll certainly be back next time. Rod, absolute honor, pleasure, and thrill to have you in the Aaron's Opinion family, man. This was a lot of fun.
Oh, thank
And
you.
until next time, I wish you a wonderful evening. And until next time, we say, thanks so much, everybody. Help one person today. Help 1 million people tomorrow.